All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about Best Picture, and let's talk about each and every one of these a little in depth here. Let's take our
20 minutes.
time.
Start the timer.
Yes, for each film.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
We might make it to the Oscars.
Yeah, exactly. So 9 films this year. Of course, the Oscars changed the rules a few years ago, and now up to 10 could be nominated. So 9 were nominated. American Hustle, Captain Phillips, Dallas Buyers Club, Gravity, Her, Nebraska, Philomena, 12 Years a Slave, and Wolf of Wall Street. I think the only one we don't have covered at this table is Philomena. Sorry. We did not realize it was going to get nominated for Best Picture when it was available. So let's just start. Let's just do this alphabetically, and then we'll sort of talk in general about what we think should win. Let's just talk about each film individually. American Hustle. Craig, it sounds like you're the only one at the table who really loved the film. I guess I'll talk about it a little bit. When I saw the trailers for this, I was so pumped for it. I thought, this is a movie that I'm going to love. And I think that might have been part of the problem, that I just sort of felt like I was so sure I was going to love this movie. And then I watched it, and it just wasn't what I expected. I expected kind of like a fun heist movie, and it wasn't that. Things I loved about it, I loved Jennifer Lawrence's character. I loved the cameos when... Sorry if this is a spoiler. When Robert De Niro pops up, I was like, whoa! And I loved that. I loved Louis C.K. in this film. I thought that was hilarious. Everything he did was great. Just overall, at the end of the movie, I was just like, I don't think I'll ever watch that again. So that was kind of my impression of it.
My impression was, I don't know, I love David O. Russell's movies, and we talked about this with Silver Linings Playbook last year and other stuff that he's made. I don't know, I like the fact that it wasn't a heist movie and that it didn't really seem to care. I enjoyed that it was... I like movies where actors kind of get to cut loose and tear into each other, and Russell's films have become, for me at least, these great actor movies where you get to see actors who you are familiar with in completely different ways. I mean, I'm not the biggest Bradley Cooper fan. I thought he was really good in Silver Linings Playbook. I enjoyed him in this film maybe even more because he's such in a normal movie he'd be the hero of this film and it'd be it's the plot and they're gonna get the ab scam thing, and he's just a stooge. He's a tool.
He thinks he just has the upper hand the whole time.
I love Russell's films are all about familial dysfunction, and he even works one scene in, and there's that funny scene where he's in his curlers and his fiancée is at the table. He doesn't care, with his mother screaming at him. And I just got a big kick out of it. I enjoyed it a lot.
His performance, his character seemed he's almost putting himself above that before he can be there, and that's a really funny way of thinking about things.
Yeah, and talking about actors too, how good Russell is. Elizabeth Rohm, if I'm saying her name right, R-O-H-M, who was on Law and Order for several years and did absolutely nothing. Yeah. She was voted like the worst actor ever on Law and Order. She has a small but key role as Jeremy Renner's wife. And this, I didn't even recognize her until the credits. And she's so fantastic. Yeah. She makes a bigger impression in that 5 minutes than in all of Law and Order.
Yeah, and let's talk about Jeremy Renner for a second, because
really
that's the first time his name's been mentioned. I loved him in this movie, and that's actually
more of him.
The relationship between him and Christian Bale. I thought that was one of the better parts of the movie. Where it's like he's sort of trying. It's like, Christian Bale's a con man in this movie. He's a confidence man, and he gains this guy's confidence, but they sort of have this relationship, and he feels bad at the end.
And they play him as the bad guy.
And he's the good guy.
And he's totally the good guy. And it's like, I totally forgot about him. He would, I think, maybe be better in that supporting role. I think he carries more of the movie. Like, when you really think about it, he's why the middle of the movie exists.
Yeah, right.
Because of that relationship.
Yeah.
One thing that I was trying to figure out why I didn't like this movie. And really, to me, at the end there, when it's kind of telegraphing the fact that there's this big switch up coming, I didn't feel like it was such a big switch up. We were told the whole way through. And that, to me, just kind of ruined any forward momentum it had. It's like, I knew that was coming the whole way. You didn't. This isn't a big switch up. It's a faux switch up.
No,
maybe that's the point too. Maybe
it's the guy wasn't the guy you thought it was. But to me, it just kind of like I've seen every heist. I just can't imagine a heist movie showing me something new. So to me, this movie showed me something new by just kind of doing a bait and switch, and just by ignoring it and making it more about character. In fact, I read something where they decide to see Russell in it. We didn't talk about the original screenplay. It wouldn't surprise me if it wins, even though Russell's big on improvisation and ad-libbing. And I guess there was a scene where they were doing that, and Christian Bale told him, well, this is going to totally change a key moment in the plot. And Russell supposedly said, Christian, I don't care about plot. I care about character. And I think, that to me, I don't care. I like a nice, good, Swiss watch clock type of film as much as the next person, but it was fun to see a film that I thought was going to be that, but it ended up being something I liked better.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to look at it. I hadn't thought about that. It is, I mean, it is very character driven. It's about the characters.
Well, it's an ensemble piece. I mean, the only other movie that I think is listed here that's truly an ensemble piece, well, maybe Nebraska, but Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, but when I think, when I immediately walked out of this movie, I was like, that was a really good cast. Like, why doesn't the Oscars have a ensemble category?
I've often wanted that.
And a lot of these movies this year would really fit well in that category. Because then you could reward a group of actors for working together rather than individualize them.
Well, the Actors Guild does do that.
Right.
And I love that.
And it just seems weird that doesn't.
And that's usually a good predictor of best picture as well.
Yes.
So whoever wins the best ensemble.
Yeah.
Except for the other Full Monty one.
Exactly. This was one of the films I saw probably the farthest out, and I have kind of forgotten it, and I don't. For me, that's not a good thing because I typically remember a lot of really key things about film. So that sounded pretentious, but
no, it's actually totally true because I'll just bring up a random movie. You're like, oh yeah, I saw that 10 years ago, and that has this guy and this guy and this guy, and this is the way it ends. I'm like, yeah, it's creepy actually.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So the next film alphabetically is kind of the sore thumb of this category, Captain Phillips. Every other film, I think, I haven't seen Philomena, but I've heard it's good. Every other film in here, I think, is one that people will remember very well. Captain Phillips, I don't. It does not strike me as a movie that needed to be nominated for Best Picture. Like, sure, there's some nominations that it fits into very well. This is not one of them. So I don't know. I mean,
I like the film quite a bit. I thought it was really well constructed and suspenseful, and the moving back and forth between the pirates and the ship people. I thought it was done well. Greengrass is a really strong director, but it didn't hit me.
Yeah, I think it's one of the top 20 films of the year, probably, but I don't think it's one of the top 9.
Yeah, it's more like the Swiss watch. This film.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, and there's a lot of pleasure in that. And I did love Tom Hanks's depiction of shell shock at the end.
Oh, that was
something new.
That was one of the best scenes.
And that was fantastic.
That was one of the best scenes all year.
Yes.
I thought and that I thought was probably one of Tom Hanks' best acting moments in the history of his career. Just finally everything's okay, but nothing is okay, and he just sells it.
Yeah, I don't know if we had this conversation on the podcast or not, but one of my problems with the movie is that during the whole part of the movie, I was thinking, you need to do this a different way. Like the characters, because it's based on a true story, and I know Greengrass really likes to just focus on like what he learns is the truth. And so the characters in this movie make so many really strange decisions that I'm like, for instance, the pirates have to be smarter than this if they've been doing this for a while, or at least talk to other people that have done it for a while. Why doesn't someone stay in the boat? Like, no, let's all get up on the ship and that little boat that might get us back to safety, we'll just, this ladder will get us up on the ship and everything will be fine. Like, I'm sorry, like, you're pirates, you should know better. Like they
didn't have a pirate advisor.
I guess, it's like,
it's
just, that's great that might have happened in real life. I don't know. It almost made me think that it was almost too stuck on the reality to be entertaining. I think if he was able to let go of sort of the facts and just craft a story, it may have been a better movie. In my opinion,
he'll never do that. Though.
I know he'll never do that exactly, and so that's why I'm kind of just like, bleh. I just don't really have a reaction to it other than I would have done that differently.
Yeah,
but he's a much better director than I.
There you go. So the next one listed here is Dallas Buyers Club. So I want to talk a little bit about the plot of this because it's actually really interesting. So Dallas Buyers Club is about a guy who he claims he's straight.
A modern cowboy.
Modern cowboy. He claims he's straight, but he's kind of got a dubious sexuality. And the film makes that pretty clear. And he finds out in the 80s that he has HIV. And in the 80s, he is, the drugs for HIV are still very primitive or just don't exist at all.
Or they do exist, you just can't get them because of the FDA. Yeah.
And so he finds out he can get these from Mexico, so he starts buying them from Mexico and sort of smuggling them into the U.S. and then selling them to other people with HIV and AIDS in the U.S.
Out of his motel.
Exactly.
Which is very interesting.
So I only have one problem with this movie, and it's something that How to Survive a Plague did as well, which covered sort of the same subject matter. So, I'm not a big fan of movies that make the FDA a villain. Like, there's a reason we have the FDA. Like, I'm happy the FDA exists. And granted, there's plenty of evidence that they really screwed up on HIV medication in the 80s. Plenty of evidence. But I just think it's kind of dangerous and maybe even a little irresponsible to make the FDA the villain of your movie when the FDA literally has jackbooted thugs coming into a location to steal drugs. And I don't know. I mean, it concerns me a little bit. I think that that the FDA has now been the villain in 2 movies. It's like I like that the FDA is there. I'm glad that they do the work they do so that I don't, that there are regulations on this stuff. So, anyways, that's me off my soapbox.
I mean, also there's been some controversy about what his character was really like in real life and how it was movie-fied, and I think sticking the FDA as the head villain in this, which is what the film does, is a kind of easy plot contrivance, and I could see where you're dissatisfied with that.
Yeah,
I mean, the FDA was dropped the ball.
Yeah, totally. Hey, on AIDS medication, they screwed up big time, and I think it's fair to say that the FDA did the wrong thing in just about every aspect of this story.
And I thought some of the criticism in it was a little more subtle than I thought it was going to be. Just the guy wearing the watch, that was subtle.
Yeah,
and I like that it was a different locale. They chose Dallas. Part of the country that has a very strict point of view, and that's Matthew McConaughey. They put everything into his character. I mean, because obviously of the New York scene, of the San Francisco scene, and a couple other places. But really, when you think about HIV and AIDS as a thing in the 80s, you don't immediately think of Texas.
Yeah,
of places. So I just was like really, I was really drawn into that. Like, oh, this is very interesting, and it starts off kind of stereotypical, but then, like I said, his character really kind of takes that journey.
Yeah.
But I really hadn't thought of the FDA thing as kind of a use of it. But that kind of goes with what I said about Captain Phillips. You're potentially taking, what is true and kind of movifying it.
But at the same time, it was all from the perspective of his character.
Totally.
From the perspective
So
of
he
his
may have felt that way. Yeah.
They were the villain, and they were the only thing standing in the way of the things that were going to help him.
It wasn't shifting perspectives. You never really left his point of view. Which
so from that perspective, I can't fault it.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's probably like my second or third favorite movie of all of these. I think it was an amazing movie, and I loved it. Just that one little thing just rubbed me the wrong way because I every time I see that, I think of people who are like, oh, we don't need government regulations for anything. It would be so much better if the government wasn't telling us what we could put in our bodies. And I'm like, yeah, but then somebody's going to fill all of your medicine with lead. So let's keep the FDA intact for a little while longer and let them test the medicine before it goes into my body.
Our toys already were. So
well, that's true.
What's the difference?
But the FDA doesn't regulate toys.
Thank goodness. No, I'm just kidding.
Anyways, so Gravity, of course, is, about astronauts. And
It's based on a true story, Andy.
yeah.
Come on.
No, it isn't.
It's real to me.
Yeah.
Location scouting was
know.
really tough.
Yeah.
So expensive.
Yeah. So it's about a disaster in space, and this astronaut has to sort of find her way home when she doesn't really have a lot of options, and she's not.
And she doesn't really have the skill set either.
Exactly. She's not. She's not a full-fledged astronaut. She's sort of along for the ride to fix this one particular thing. And a lot has been said about this film, but I will say that when I saw it, it blew me away. Yeah. It has faded a little bit for me because I saw it so long ago. I saw it back in September or October, I think. And with the number of movies I've seen between now and then, it definitely fades. In fact, I think of all these, it was probably the first one that I saw out of all of these listed. In fact, I'm sure it was.
Yeah, now that I think about it, it's probably mine as well.
So it's tough when it's that far away. I will say I think it's better than last year's Best Picture nominee, or Best Picture winner. I think it's better than Argo.
Oh, that's right.
I think it might. I think it might be better than.
Academy.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it might be better than all of the Best Picture nominees last year. But there's just so much else that's come out since then. I think it would probably be in the lower third of my rankings.
Yeah.
Here.
It was a great experience movie, as you said, and like you, it's faded for me. I don't know, the things I didn't like stick out more, like George Clooney, hey baby, we're in outer space. And we've been up here for months. I don't know anything about you. And I don't know, just kind of the stuff like that. Gravity and All Is Lost really have the same plot. They're very similar. All Is Lost kind of registers more for me on that. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad it exists.
Yeah.
I've talked at length about this movie in the past, and just off air, you could say. It's just delightful to me that not only a movie of this genre, I mean, it's almost its own genre, and in this case, space disaster movie. It's kind of awesome. You don't really think something like that would exist in the 70s and be shot awful. But the fact that it's been critically received and is still making money as of right now, and if it gets any awards, they're just going to keep it in the theaters to the point where hopefully they re-release it in 2D. Although I hear the 3D's good. Everyone should know by now what my feelings are about 3D. But it makes me want to go see it in 3D just because everyone's talking about the experience, and I think that's let's talk about it. What other movies are let's go see Dallas Buyers Club in 3D. It's keeping that sort of format alive.
Yeah.
I would love to see the midget toss and Wolf of Wall Street in 3D.
Yeah, you have a good point. So it's interesting because it's two different experiences. It's still a spectacle on screen in 2D, if you talk about it in that sense. Technically, it's the strongest movie I think on any of the list. It's got a lot going for it. It's also great that Alfonso has a movie that is not as depressing as most of his material, and is also making a lot of money, so that hopefully he can just go and make more
absolutely
incredibly depressing but amazing movies.
More Alfonso Cuarón. We all need more Alfonso Cuarón.
I mean, Children of Men is just one of my favorite movies. That every time someone brings it up, I'm like, I have to go watch this movie.
I watched that car scene.
Yeah.
That's one of the best scenes I've seen.
It's taking that car scene and just stretching it out into a movie in space. It's just okay, the cool stuff we did in that, let's do that in space.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's do this.
If I didn't have a pregnant stomach, I would go see it, but I just can't handle that.
Well, and I think the other interesting thing about Gravity is that a lot of films would have had half an hour of filler before Gravity started. They would have had half an hour of
characterization.
Yeah, characterization, and hey, we're gonna here's how we go up in the rocket, and here's how you get to this thing, and blah blah blah, and then
that was space camp.
Parentheses 3 months later, and then this movie starts. But no, this movie's just boom, you're in it. Within 10 minutes, the disaster happens, and then the whole rest of the movie, you're like, it could end at any moment. Anything could go wrong, and this movie could end at any moment, and you never feel safe with it.
So the ending of the movie. I don't know if I want to talk about this now. We have to have an episode where I get to talk about every spoiler of every movie that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I won't do it. I won't talk about it. I'll tell you guys off air. There's some interesting imagery and sort of some interesting things to say. Some stuff I caught on too that my wife hadn't, and I kind of mentioned it to her.
Yeah.
After she saw it,
Well,
and she was kind of like, "Oh yeah, I can see that."
The imagery, I think, is very clear in the film. There's a lot of sort of birth and womb imagery, and you know, being reborn. It's very clear the imagery that's there.
It's evolution. And,
I think this is the one movie out of any of these that if you wait to see it at home, you'll probably regret it. You know, it's the like, well, except for James.
Except for people like me.
We'll find you the smallest television and allow you to watch it.
I have it.
But it's just it's such a spectacle. Like to me, it's like not seeing The Matrix in a theater. You know, it's that equivalent. Like it's just such a thing that you have to have in front of you that you can't escape. That if you will regret later on, if you're not James, and have
maybe I could take some Dramamine and go see it.
I think I was telling you before we recorded, my wife generally has problems with that, I think, and she didn't tell me that she had any problems with it. So, but yeah, I mean, at this point, I will now go see it in 3D. I will now commit to that.
Yeah,
I will.
Right on. So the next one listed here is Her. Her, I thought, was amazing because it really broke down like basic human needs. Like that's what it was about. It's like, what do you need as a human? It's like if you got everything else covered, you got food and shelter, what do you need? Well, you need companionship. And what is that companionship about? And it really, I think, digs into like what love actually is. It's like it's this person who just can't get enough of you.
Codependency.
Yes. Except in a sweet way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it got at the darkness of relationships really well, but it seemed like he got his groove back, Spike Jonze. He's got a sense of whimsy back.
Yeah.
Where the Wild Things were so dark.
Yeah.
Just really, really dark. And I still liked it, but this film was like light and effervescent.
And it felt like at the first 10 minutes or so, you're like, oh man, this movie's gonna be so depressing. And then it's not. It's like a fun date movie almost.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw it that way.
And just even wonderful jokes like the fact that the OS is created entirely based on the question of his relationship with his mother.
Yeah.
And he just barely answers it, and boom, there she is.
Yeah.
You know, the woman of his dreams, I guess, or nightmares.
Yeah.
And I loved, I have to mention too, Amy Adams again, supporting actress. Talk about such a versatile actress and a completely different performance and a great stealth performance because she ended up being more important by the end than I thought she was going to be. So yeah, wonderful film.
Yeah,
I think for me this movie, I can't. I should have written down what you said right when we started talking about it. The movie kind of argues for companionship, but then also I think argues against companionship in a way. For me, I really struggled with the movie, and not necessarily in a bad way. I think everyone should check it out if you have any interest in seeing it, or even if you kind of shook your head like, oh, this movie's gonna be stupid and dumb. I think giving it a chance is well worth your time. I don't know. I don't want to be the guy in the room that didn't like this movie.
I didn't like it.
I liked it. I will say this: the last 10 minutes of the movie, except for the last 2 minutes. So like, do that rewinding. So like the last 2 minutes, okay, whatever. The 10 minutes before that, I thought were awesome. I thought there's a scene with Joaquin that it just plays out, and when you think about it, he's talking to nobody. Mm-hmm. He's out in wherever, sitting on these stairs, and he's talking to. I mean, his performance in that, it was just like this. He has this realization, this key moment that it's just like, oh snap! You're like, oh, it's gonna hit. Like something's gonna hit the fan right now. And I thought that was great. For me, that was more of a performance rather than.
I have to disagree a little bit because one of the things that I liked about the movie is that it's ostensibly set in the near future, but it didn't feel like the future to me at all. It felt like a movie talking about what we do now.
No, I didn't. I'm not arguing
down the street.
I'm not arguing against that. What I'm saying is that I was just impressed with that performance. That realization in the movie, that plot point, is what pulled me back in. Because at that point, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, just get on with it. You know, I don't know what it was at that point in the movie that was making me think that, but I don't know. I just had a tug of war with it because it was believable. I don't know.
Yeah. I was really moved by the film. I know that a lot of people a lot of people in my grad program all went to see it together, and they all loved it. It really spoke to me personally. That's all I can say about it at the end. So, so Nebraska. I did anyone else see Nebraska? I feel like I've been only
love Nebraska.
Okay,
it was
you
hilarious.
talk about Nebraska for 10 minutes then, because I shouldn't anymore.
I love Alexander Payne's films. Actually, The Descendants is my least favorite of his films. Sorry. But
That's not a bad thing, though. I mean, he's made some good movies.
He's made great movies, and I think he gets at the kind of silliness of American life really, really well. And this movie, he has a wonderful way with actors. The fact that he got such a great performance out of Will Forte, I think that's another person that maybe could have been nominated. And to recognize June Squibb as someone that he used before in About Schmidt for a very small part, she was wonderful in it. So he's one of those people like Wes Anderson, contemporary directors that seems to find actors that love working with him and really explode in the roles they have. The film itself is pretty simple and stark and beautiful. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And it's better than any film that was nominated last year. But again, we're in a really good year.
Well, and also, I mean, I also have to call out the ending. The end of this movie, the last 2 minutes are just probably the best ending I've seen in a film in a long time. So good, so satisfying, because you feel like it's going to end on a downbeat, and you're like, well, okay, I guess I'll accept that, because I knew that was coming. But then he turns it around and turns it into something that's just like, I love what just happened, because I wasn't sure where he was going with it at first, and then
it was a happy ending, but not a Hollywood happy ending where everyone's lives are suddenly enriched and great.
It's just like one moment of triumph. Yeah, that's it. That's what you get.
Small victory. Yeah. For a small film. I mean, I guess that it kind of works.
Yeah. So I loved Nebraska. I think it's my favorite film of the year. Just flat out favorite film of the year. Philomena, no one here saw it. Sorry. But it's a film about a woman who gives up a child to the Catholic Church when she's young, and goes searching for this child after so many years, hoping to find him again. 12 Years a Slave. I really loved this movie. I don't know how much else we can talk about it. I think we've talked about that more up to this point than any other film. We just keep talking and talking and talking about it because it really is that great. Anyone have any further thoughts on 12 Years a Slave?
The only thing that that distracted me in the movie was Brad Pitt. I'll say that.
Yeah.
When he shows up, I was kind of like, this could be played by somebody else.
Yeah.
And maybe have this same amount of impact to that point, you know?
Yeah. I mean, he obviously just thrown it because he produced.
Well, he was involved in the film, yeah. And so, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if I were to sort of nitpick the movie, like I've tried to with her and not done a very good job of it, I will say I saw it last night. It was the last movie I saw on this list, so I'm still processing. Yeah. But 12 Years a Slave, I mean, it really moved me because, I mean, I kind of saw it in the midst of all these, trying to see all these other films, and to kind of experience sort of like the pacing of the film, just really trying to slow you down, which I feel is very intentional. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you're trying to obviously experience the 12 years that you see, that you really experience that, and I feel like, honestly, that movie could have been longer and I would have probably still been as fascinated with it.
Yeah, well, you brought up an interesting point, which is that I think any other film would have charted the chronology, this is year 1, year 4.
Yeah.
It all kind of, but I liked it from his point of view, from Solomon's point of view. All the days start to blur together, and it become in a way that's felt very subjective and very authentic to me.
Yeah,
and surreal in a way.
They really could have done that. Yeah, because you get lost in it. Because you're like, I don't have no idea where this is, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because
he has no idea where he is.
He
right?
does exactly.
Yeah, I love. I talked a little bit earlier about the use of landscape. It just it was just pitch perfect. It was a real perfect film in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I talked about this when I had first seen it. Obviously, last year, Django was nominated, and I just thought it was kind of interesting to kind of compare those two next. They're obviously not the same movie for obvious reasons, but it's just kind of like I was really impressed with those set pieces and that, and then this one I was just like, it's almost like another level to it, and I don't know, maybe just because of the realism.
Yeah.
The fact that everything was just practical for the sake of obviously needing to be that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just so much to say about this movie with spoiling a lot of it. It's just something that I have not run into anybody that was not moved by this movie in some way.
It's interesting. I was trying to think. Most of these films are kind of genre films in a way, and this is not a genre film.
Yeah.
Like.
Not when you experience it. It may seem like it on the surface.
It's really different, and it was one of the better movie going experiences I had. It was in a rush of films I saw in late December.
Yeah,
and almost everyone at the theater sat and watched the credits.
Yeah,
which
exactly. That's
never happens. Even for films people love, they have other stuff to do.
I think it's that decompression.
You needed that time to kind of
exactly
take a big deep breath after that one. It's a tough watch, as it should be, and it's just an amazing film.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's that's a really good point, because I noticed that as well. I mean, the theater I saw it in, it was packed, and nobody left the theater until really maybe the last 2 minutes of the credits. People started kind of getting ready, because it's just such a heavy film. And there's very, very few things in this movie that I can really point out and be like, I didn't like that. But
and usually for heavy films, I just feel like, oh goodness, when this director is just slapping me, and
when
is this going to end?
Yeah.
I never felt that. It's beautifully paced.
Yeah, well, it's very economical. And another great performance, Alfre Woodward. Was one scene.
Real brief, but great.
This in a kind of a strange scene as she's a slave of a nearby plantation, and we also casually found out she's the mistress of the plantation owner, and that relationship is sort of kind of mirrors the dark, really twisted one between Fassbender and I'm sorry, her name is
Lupita.
What her character? I don't remember what her character name is either.
I can't remember. Yeah.
The other performance in that I just thought of was Giamatti.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, brief.
Very brief,
snarling.
I mean, that one. I mean, you've got to be able to, as an actor, do a lot of positive things to play that guy.
I thought, speaking of Django, I felt like Tarantino tried to put us in a world where slavery was real. Even though some of the characters were fantastical, he tried to sort of drop you into a world where slavery was real. I think McQueen did it better by not trying to make anything fun.
Right.
And that scene in particular with Giamatti was
so
real. And it was just like, it's just horrifying.
Yeah, that's kind of the point I was trying to make. It's just like Django is just it's not very satirical, but there are definitely some aspects to try to make you laugh and kind of make it like,
it's a cartoon.
Yeah, it is really just
it's a B movie pulp fantasy and all that.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting to kind of have those almost back to back at the Oscars,
Yeah, and there's a psychology like the tough talking slave on the ship who ends up sobbing when he sees his master, and it kind of for Solomon to survive, it has to be mental toughness. He has to remember who he is, and that's eventually what saves him.
Yeah.
Just a lot of really good decision making.
Yeah. All right. So last one here, then we'll talk about who will win and should win. Wolf of Wall Street. This one, this was I think the first of sort of in December that I saw. I really like Wolf of Wall Street. To me, it's kind of like an update on Goodfellas. It's like if Scorsese was making Goodfellas like 20 years later, like who are the villains now that also you sort of want to root for, and how do you build this movie again? The structure is very similar. The narrator is very similar. I really liked this movie a lot, and I don't understand why so many people like take personal offense at the movie. Like you're not supposed to think the people are cool. You're not supposed to like enjoy what they're doing. That's not the point. The point is they're so loathsome, but they enjoy what they're doing, and that's part of why they're so loathsome.
Yeah, it's a big, crazy Molotov cocktail. It's kind of a great sort of tall tale of Wall Street, and I didn't. It actually makes good use of unreliable narrator, which is so hard to pull off. I even love, just this one sort of brief moment. It's after the. After the boat, almost that disastrous boat ride where they all almost die. And there's just this throwaway moment, which any other movie would have made a big moment, where the plane that comes to crash. Yeah. From DiCaprio, the plane explodes and it goes down in flames. It's like, did that just really happen? and we're not sure if we're supposed to take that literally or not. So it's just Scorsese throwing every trick in the book. I know what you were saying about it. He didn't use "Gimme Shelter" again. I did appreciate that.
Thank goodness.
I love the use of Mrs. Robinson. That was fun.
Yeah, that's the thing too. That really, there was it's typical Scorsese and melding music with scenery. It's just there's the one shot where he sort of cranes, to the back of the boiler room and then kind of comes back in, and everyone's just like slow motion crazy and that just, I was like,
that was great.
Yeah, I was like, this is awesome. Like I had that point. I was like, this song, this scene, awesome.
And there's that wonderful scene where the one of the few female members of the boiler room has this big tearful moment where Jordan Belfort gave her $20,000 to start, and she was a single mom, and you forget what a bunch of scumbag crooks these people are, because
that shows you the power of what they're capable of.
Exactly. And the final image, which I won't give away, it's Richard Brody talked about it. He said if this were to be his last film, that final image would just be the perfect cap of his career.
And the whole thing about people thinking it's celebrating this lifestyle, I think it just, I mean, all of us are enthralled by that lifestyle in some way, and to only look at it in a very serious, dour tone and not understand the allure of that lifestyle, like being the guy throwing hundreds around and being on the boat. That's what a lot of the American dream feeds us all the time. And I don't think it was an irresponsible movie.
No, I think it was highly critical of that lifestyle.
Well, and showing how primitive those desires are. Like, and even it's sex and power, right?
Yeah.
I mean, well, even to the point where, like, in the movie itself, like he just can't give it up to the point where he's doing like not telemarketing, the TV stuff. I can't even think what that's called. Infomercials.
Infomercials.
The fact that he's so addicted to just the environment and he has to get back into it, and he goes that direction, and it's just ridiculous. I will say I pretty much from the very beginning never sympathized with any of these characters.
No.
If we're going to try to compare it to Goodfellas, like at the end of Goodfellas, I was like, all right, like Ray Liotta, you're awesome. Like I like you. You're the good anti-hero. There's no anti-hero in this movie for me.
They're just all anti.
Yeah, except for Kyle Chandler's character, who he wins and then he's stuck on the subway on the road.
Perfect.
It's
it's his best movie in a really, really long time.
Yeah,
it was one of my favorite movies of the year, and my very favorite movie-going experience of the year. I saw it at like a 10:30 show. It's a 3-hour film. After seeing American Hustle earlier, and being tired and like, I don't know about this, and I was by myself laughing out loud. So happy to see young kids on dates watching this movie, wondering what kind of crazy things they're going to try later on.
I never felt the 3 hours of this movie. I want to see the 4-hour version of this movie. I do. Because the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, I had a good time. It's not my favorite film, maybe not even in my top 3, maybe not even my top 5, but I really liked it. Like I was just like, I'm having a good time despite these characters doing terrible things in so many different ways. Like the variety of terrible things you can do to other people and yourself is amazing in this movie.
And if I look at all these movies, like 20 years from now, I will remember the lemon sequence from this for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
and I still haven't seen Gravity yet, but there's not many other moments. And looking at these films, I liked quite a few of them, but I will remember that forever.
It's because the more I think about the movie, the more I think, okay, everything is so out there, and and people may be thinking it's celebrating this lifestyle, but think about how the story's being told. It's being told from the guy who thinks he's awesome. How much of that, like if. And it is part of that. The latter part of that lemon scene is sort of like, this is how I thought everything played out. Oh, and this is really how it is.
That was so funny.
I want to see. I really, honestly, would love to see like the movie shown, and then like how it really was, like a little bit more boring than because I was coked out on my mind. I want to say that maybe people aren't grasping. That's how at least I saw it. Like I was, there are very few scenes where they're not on drugs. And when they're not on drugs, you still can't believe them. You know, it's just so over the top. And that's why I think a lot of people, were thinking like, oh, it's so overacted. I think it's done on a purpose.
That's
like
the pitch of the film.
That's the whole,
the film's on coke.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing about this film was every film like this sort of has the moment of comeuppance for the bad guy, and everyone is the bad guy. So I was kind of waiting for that. This movie took so long for the comeuppance. I was like, that would be an amazing movie if you just showed everyone doing these awful things and then everything turns out okay. But it took so long to get to that point. I was like waiting for it because I was like, I know that's how a movie like this is structured. You show how great they think everything is, and then something really bad happens, and then it took so long for that to happen. I really thought for a while, like, wow, nothing bad's ever going to happen to these guys.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Kyle Chandler character. Like, the film could have been told from his perspective. In the pursuit of this, it would have ended up being about as exciting as Zero Dark 30, being from the investigator's perspective. And it shouldn't be that.
No.
Yeah.
And it could have been, Oliver Stone made his Wall Street movie, and I enjoyed it, but Oliver Stone has a very moralistic, heavy-handed side I mean, I think Scorsese is just as moral, if not even more so in some ways, but he...
I didn't feel this was a heavy-handed film.
No, it wasn't heavy at all. This one was, very alive.
Yeah, and he makes a lot of callbacks, especially that last scene. I think that the payoff, there's a lot of sort of set payoffs during the movie that I really kind of was like, good job. Like, this is why he makes movies, because he's so good at it.
Yeah. All right, so... Will win, should win. James, why don't we start with you?
I'm going to throw in one movie that should have been nominated. Fruitvale Station should have been nominated, and that's all I'll say. I think I enjoyed Wolf of Wall Street more than anything out of this group. I think 12 Years a Slave will win and should win.
Yeah.
I want to say To the Wonder is the worst movie of the year. Sorry, Malik people. Should win Her, and will win 12 Years a Slave. And I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
12 Years a Slave. I mean, you will and should.
Yeah.
Just a great movie.
Yeah. I think 12 Years a Slave will win. I could go with about 4 others for should win.
This is not a bad thing.
I know.
This is a good problem to have.
An amazing year for movies. I think I would vote for Her just because of how personally moving it was and how real that slightly future world felt. So yeah. Anyone want to do like a top 3 in this category?
Oh boy.
Sort of?
Yeah, I actually like all 6 movies out of the 9 I saw. There's no War Horse or something to take issue with to really pound on. Yeah, Her, Wolf of Wall Street, and American Hustle are my 3 favorite on this list. I love, Inside Llewyn Davis, as I said before, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see taking American Hustle and Captain Phillips off of this list. But
I'm just surprised there's not 10.
Yeah,
you're so close to 10. Just
make
do
a 10.
I don't care what else you put on there. Just put 10 on there.
Yeah.
Right.
Top 3 would be Wolf of Wall Street, 12 Years a Slave, and Her for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to go based off of replayability in a weird way. So this might surprise. There's one that might surprise you. 12 Years a Slave, Dallas Buyers Club, and Her. Interesting, right?
Interesting.
Yeah,
you
just because
me.
it's just, yeah. The fact that I'm having a little bit of a struggle with it means it's doing something.
It might be a good thing.
And it might be, because my whole thing with a couple of movies like Zero Dark 30, if to reference the movie, I saw it twice, and I still was like, by the time we recorded it, I was like, I don't know if I like it or not. But now that I think about it, I was like, I want to go watch that movie again because it leaves an impact. And so I think for me, there's a lot of processing time that's needed. And I think, like I said, for the movie to pull me back in so late into it, I was like, good job, Spike. Like you've earned my in my top 3. So I'll say Her. I mean, we've been doing this for a number of years now that I don't remember, a list of movies that sort of has such a variety to it.
Yeah.
And so I'm really, really happy with that.
Yeah. As far as movies that I will definitely watch again, these are no particular order. Her and Wolf of Wall Street, I will definitely watch those again. And that third one is a coin flip between Nebraska and Dallas Buyers Club. I think Nebraska is probably my favorite film of the year, but I recognize that that's a lot of sort of personal feelings towards that movie. So I think Dallas Buyers Club is probably the superior film for me. And if you'd asked me yesterday, I probably wouldn't have said Wolf of Wall Street. But now that we've been talking about it, I really want to see that movie again. Really want to see that movie again. I loved it so much.
Yeah, I think for me, out of all the movies, it probably if I were to see it on cable, or
this isn't showing up on cable.
If I were to see this on a premium cable channel, I would watch it again. Or I mean, it may be to the point where I actually even purchased it. Like I said, if they were to release a 4-hour version of this movie, I'm there. Like, I, for some strange, weird reason, want to see more of this crazy world, and kind of because I really didn't make that drug perspective, until we really started thinking about it. I was like, yeah, this movie's totally not real. It even kind of in the middle of the movie is like, yeah, it's not real, because this is what really happened. I thought that was kind of clever. So I think it does have the most replayability. Gravity, I will be interested to see on my 46-inch television at home to see if it really pays up to my. You have to see this, and
size does matter.
That's true.
12 Years a Slave is a big favorite to win. Gravity is a close. It's basically a 2-dog race according to the online betting peoples. I was going to ask if you could see if one film sneaks in and beats those two out of the ones nominated. Which one do you think it would be?
For me, it would be Her. I think Her would be the one that.
Her would be my choice, but I think the one that actually has a chance might be Dallas Buyers Club.
I agree.
See, I would say American Hustle, just because I think the Academy really likes David O. Russell, and it got nominated again best act all 4 major acting categories. I had thought even when we talked a couple of weeks ago, I thought it might do it. I don't think it is now, but to answer your question, I would pick American Hustle.
Yeah. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.